One of most... Why is there something and not nothing, says the scientist in the literature, the publications. Nobody can figure out why the finger in front of the video now has an image. They get where the light comes from. They understand the sun, the heat, and the radiance provided by the power provided from the energy in the source now. And philosophically and neurophilosophically and neuroconsciously and neurologically relevant, how did the takeover of the system in place with the government who controls the money, how did so many people get so angry and so upset? And also, why have so many people started to control other humans, locking them up when they've got energy and vigor and vitality to work in the fields where they say nobody wants to go now, to pick cotton, to make my clothes, to rip the potato out of the ground and eat it raw. Everybody has spent so much time convincing one another about what they need to do, how they need to do it, where they need to do it, and especially when. Time and energy. There'll be so many calories available at a certain moment in the day. There will be a silence in the late night when the drug addict doesn't run down the street threatening the inhabitants of the buildings where they have apartments and condominiums and the houses with families now. Or the anarchist Antifa, terrorist loving, firework exploding, detonating bomb. To regain some energy to provide to the world who needs those dollars and cents from the client patient and those hands of the worker who builds their house and home and vehicle. I remember when I was in college, there was a famous book by John Krakauer, an author from Washington State, called Into the Wild. And this rich and affluent and well-educated young man went out and explored and discovered, gave away all financial belongings, possessions, and made his way, a male human, up to Alaska in the middle of nowhere. Got ready in the movie with Sean Penn directing, the director Sean Penn, who made the movie, explains how he went to hunger and starvation and then tried to return back to civilization, to the city and the state and the country he hated and denounced as racist and incompetent and a capitalist nightmare, failed and died tragically and sadly and horribly with nobody around now. Going back from those conditions, there's only a few choices available. You organize, you get a social group to form, you make friends, and you build a resistance and a revolution to overthrow the problem, to eliminate the distraction. And also, for some people, go live in the middle of an island and primitively gather, forage, and die peacefully away from the drugs and the heroin and the crack and the meth and the currency, bank account numbers, and application review material appointments. The problem in my hands explains what never ever gets solved and articulated. Described right now as emotions and pleas for sanity and help and loving affection from those all around now. Having a big, loud voice and speaking in sentences and pausing to shut the window now are too intellectually demanding. They cause too many disruptions in time. And the energy wasted with the dissonance in the cognitive processing and violent white racist supremacist waste the precious energy from the vegan cheese and the tofu turkey, and are too much of a risk to make someone eat an entire animal and take every fish from their stupid, ugly ocean they worship and bow down to with their practices and their rituals, their training seminars about how to be so consciously alive and aware of a city, a word, a letter, a sentence, a grammar mark, linguistics, and their mathematical equation. Professors and instructors in the colleges and the universities that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for poor people like me now, who have to apply from out of state where there's no other option or choice to make now, are funded, staffed, and enthusiastically supported by those people who went into the wild during the Vietnam War, who stood up after the Korean War, and who defiantly flicked their middle finger into the open air during World War II at Hitler and Mao and Stalin later. Went to Canada and then did so many drugs after the fighting ended. They now need care, facilities, and retirement places to rest. Those who did not get drafted, those who came back whole, those who were not as unfortunate as Mr. Furlow, who taught me history in junior high at Hendrix in Chandler, Arizona when I was little, who lost his legs from a landmine when he was patrolling and said, "Don't ever throw a grenade and let go. Grab tight, throw hard, and let them all die quietly," he said now. Those few, those proud and those intelligent and high IQ humans, they started to study LSD. They sold mushrooms to their buddies. They put aside coffee in glass. And they started to make crack and meth, and they sold some heroin. And they started a needle exchange. And then they started to open the books from Karl Marx and all of the writers from the Frankfurt School in Germany, the philosophers and the ideological thinkers from Europe, and took the Russian propaganda and the symbols and the drawings from Mao in China during the Communist Revolution, and also lovingly embraced the socialist Che Guevara, who successfully went into the jungle the stupid, idiotic, capitalist Americans failed in Vietnam over near Asia and took over the Cuban land and made them all better off now. People like me who went to Western Washington University in Bellingham. People who wanted to know about race, progress, and benefits for getting smart and not simply going to work at a job, enrolled in these classrooms with the assumption they had benefit now.